Hello my lovelies, welcome back. I am Rebecca Markelv, and today I want to cover some grey area based on preference over discrimination. Since this whole sexual preference of super straight has kind of come around and started to be spread about, from what was meant to be some sort of satirical joke, it was taken seriously by a lot of people of the trans community and the super straight community, where people have kind of just jumped on this bandwagon and things have just started to kick off. Do I really give a damn about super straight? Not really. Do I think it's wrong? A little bit, yeah. I think it does come across a bit discriminative against transgender people, but at the end of the day, do I want to date someone who is super straight? No. But I want to take a fairly neutral position on whether wanting to date a transgender person or not falls under a form of prejudice or a form of discrimination, transphobia. So let's kick this off with preference sides of things. So for starters, it could be a preference if somebody chooses not to want to date transgender people based on so many factors, and one of those factors is insecurity. You could argue that people's insecurities can factor in to what our dating preferences would be, such as our height or weight or body image or mental health. We sometimes base what we want from a person based on our own insecurities. I have a preference for tall men. Well, that's just being heightist, because I don't like my height. And I'll admit that I am insecure about my height. I don't like being a tall woman, and I'm okay with having a preference for taller men. So you would never date a man smaller than you? I'd have a harder time about it probably, yes. But I guess I would never say never. At the end of the day, we have been using dating sites very regularly where we start forming these preferences based on a single image of someone. We look at a picture of someone and we base it off of that. Then the next thing we'll probably see is their age and height and their location. But if I was to say meet someone in some social activity where some guy might start getting to know me and I get to know them, things happen. Things tend to not be based on our preferences anymore. It tends to be based on the person. Which leads us to potential discrimination side of things. If we have a certain attraction to someone where we are full on attracted to their personality, the way they look, just everything about them is an attractive thing to you. You feel connected. But then you find out they're trans. Is that seriously something that you would just consider, like, completely cut things off just because of that? Like, it doesn't really make sense that you can be attracted to someone to such a level, from their personality to the way they look, and you've made this connection, like you feel really into them, and then they go, by the way, I'm transgender. What? That's it. Bye bye. See you later. Which could argue that you're just being transphobic. If you're doing that, then you're not accepting who they are as that person, and that's why it can kind of come across in such a way. But let's argue for the way people are brought up, the way that we as a society are brought up with these kind of ideologies that we are kind of brought up to think that a cisgender and a cisgender person is what would make a happy couple. It enforces the idea that transgender women are just a separate category of women. That's not entirely what we're trying to be. We're just trying to be a woman, or trans men are just trying to be a man. That's it. They're just men and women. That's it. But the problem is because we are brought up in such a way where we have this cisgender plus cisgender relationship ideology. Sometimes, no matter how accepting of a person people can be, is that they can't get this small bit out of the back of the mind that they are still seeing the opposite gender in some form of way. And is that entirely their fault, or is that just down to the process that people are brought through, like that they have this social influence? And I think it takes a lot to try and unlearn something and then relearn. Is it fair to say that they're transphobic or discriminative? Like, for example, they could be completely accepting of me and they go, I see you as a woman, I only see you as a woman, that's who you are. And then they're not quite happy with the idea of a relationship because somewhere in the back of the mind there could still be this kind of unconscious decision that they don't fully see that. But then you could argue that people still need to be educated and they need to stop being that little bit ignorant, stop basing things based on just sex and gender. They don't seem to think that sex and gender are different when in fact sex and gender are completely different. Seriously, look it up. Sex is the biological identification of a gender, whereas gender is how you identify completely, whether you want to be masculine gender or feminine gender or non-binary or agender. Gender is the spectrum. Put it this way as well, that if you found out right now that your partner was actually transgender, would you actually leave them? Yeah, there might be a bit of a like, why didn't you tell me kind of moment, but would you seriously leave them after all that you may have been through? Because if I had a partner and I was with them for many years and then found out they were transgender or something like that, I would feel like maybe I was lied to because they didn't feel like they could trust me to tell me. But I don't think I would like leave them based on that motive. Okay, what about genital preference? Okay, yeah, sure, because at the end of the day, you can't make someone like one genital that they probably don't even have any attraction to. Like, that's just silly. I think it's more than reasonable. But not all transgender people have the genitals of the opposite of what they're not attracted to. Did I say that right? So saying that you don't want to date a transgender person based on genitals still has a discriminative mindset behind it, because not all transgender people have the opposite sex organs that they're actually attracted to. Not attracted to. Okay, what about sheer lack of education instead? It's not necessarily that they're being transphobic or intentionally discriminative, it's just that they're being misinformed or having these wrong assumptions that they have of transgender people. And you would find that transgender people come in all shapes and sizes, and some are happy the way they are in certain ways, and some are still transitioning to the point where they are until they are happy. I am still at transitioning because I feel I am still not at the end of my transition. I still feel I've got a long way to go, and I kind of like that journey, that I want to keep going because that's what I feel. I feel I'm not my full authentic self yet because I feel like I got so much of my journey to go. Okay, what about kids then? Adoption? What about biological kids? What about cis women who can't actually have kids themselves? Okay, sure, like if you are trying to date someone who is cisgendered and then you find out that they can't have kids themselves and you base your preference that you would not go out with that person because they can't have kids, fine. But let's be honest, is that really the case? But if you were dating a cisgender person and you found out that they can't have kids, you're probably also going to be okay with that because you like that person for who they are and just your general attractions. So why can't transgender people also have the same? Well, at the end of the day, why would you want to force people who don't like transgender people to date with transgender people? Yeah? Why would I want to date someone who doesn't want to be with a transgender person? that kind of falls under discrimination and preference. Like, that's kind of grey area. Like, I don't want to go out with someone who is not interested in a transgender person. It's not gonna be the most fulfilling relationship ever. Does that make them slightly transphobic? Maybe a little. Should I care? Probably not. It'd be great if the world did like every single person, but at the end of the day, you can't make everyone like a particular type of person. I think as human beings, we seem to categorize and label things regardless. And that's just probably the way we are. We always will be. At the end of the day, it could be a preference just based on the whole idea of that it's a freedom of choice. It's their choice of who they want to date and who they choose not to. Why should I care? Why should it bother me? I don't want to date someone who's not into me. So regardless of it being a discriminative or a preference, like, why should I care? At the same time, are these people also not educated enough in what a transgender person actually is? I feel we need to stop throwing this "you're transphobic" around as if it's like going to answer the problems, because all it's really gonna do is probably cause more and start making people put defensive walls up and just like completely lash out back. Why do we want that? Me personally, I don't really care if you're not into transgender people or not. It's really up to you, in my opinion. If you choose not to, do I think it's a form of transphobia? Depends on the reasoning. It's a very grey area at the end of the day. But yeah, I feel people still need to be educated on transgender people in general and the whole kind of spectrum of what people can be like, but not to fully disregard everyone as some sort of category, because we do come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. We are just people. I hope this gives a bit of insight on just different sides of why it can be a preference, why it can be discrimination, and not necessarily someone being transphobic. I don't want to say that I'm picking one side. I just want to kind of throw out ideas and reasons of why people make these preferences. And I feel we need to stop throwing the transphobic word around everywhere as if it's going to solve the problems. I'm going to leave it there anyway, so if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like. I've been Markelv, and I shall see you in the next video. Take care of yourself.